Have you ever paused in the middle of a perfectly fine day, looked around at your life, the job, the relationships, the routine, and felt a quiet, unnerving sense of disconnect? A feeling not of misery, but of misplacement, as if you're an actor who has wandered onto the wrong stage, performing a role you never auditioned for. It's a subtle hum of dissonance beneath the surface of an otherwise acceptable existence. This feeling is one of the most perplexing experiences of modern life. We are told to chase success, to build a life that looks good on paper, to follow a map laid out by society. But what happens when you follow the map diligently, only to find that the destination doesn't feel like home? What happens when the life you've built feels less like a sanctuary and more like a beautifully decorated cage? This isn't about a midlife crisis or a dramatic breakdown. It's about the slow, creeping realization that the path you are on is not leading you toward your authentic self, but away from it. It's the quiet tragedy of a life lived in default mode, a life of quiet desperation, as Thoreau warned. The ancient Stoics, from the Roman emperor Marcus Aurelius to the former slave Epictetus, were masters of this internal audit. They understood that the unexamined life is not worth living, not because it is inherently bad, but because it is inherently unlived. It is a passive existence, a surrender to external forces rather than a conscious creation from within. They taught that the greatest human endeavor is to live in accordance with nature, our own true nature. When we deviate from that path, the universe sends us signals, not as loud alarms, but as quiet, persistent whispers. Today, we are going to learn to decipher 10 of those whispers. These are the weirdly accurate signs that you might be living the wrong life, not by society's standards, but by the only standard that truly matters, your own. The first sign is that you constantly seek external validation. You post a picture and obsessively check for likes. You complete a project at work and feel hollow until your boss offers praise. Your sense of accomplishment is not a private, internal satisfaction, but a public performance awaiting applause. You measure your worth not by your own internal compass, but by the shifting opinions and fleeting approval of others. This is a dangerous game, for you are handing the keys to your happiness to a world that is, at its core, indifferent to you. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus stated it with piercing clarity. If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. This is a radical idea in our hypervisible world. It suggests that true progress, true alignment with your purpose, often requires you to move in a direction that others may not understand or approve of. When your self-worth is outsourced, you become a slave to the whims of the crowd. You will dull your edges, soften your convictions, and shrink your ambitions to fit into the comfortable, acceptable box that others have built for you. The real work of life is to build an internal courthouse, a place where you are the sole judge of your own value, based on your character, your integrity, and your effort, not on the verdict of the public. If you find that your emotional state is a roller coaster dictated by the praise or criticism of others, it is a profound sign that the life you are living is for an audience, not for yourself. The second sign, closely related to the first, is that your yes is automatic, while your no is a monumental struggle. A colleague asks for help on a project that will stretch you thin. You say yes. A friend invites you to an event you have no energy for. You say yes. A family member makes an unreasonable demand on your time. You say yes. Each yes is a small betrayal of your own needs, your own priorities, your own peace. You do it to be seen as helpful, agreeable, and kind, but the cost is a slow erosion of your own life's foundation. You become a supporting character in everyone else's story, with no time or energy left to be the protagonist in your own. The Roman playwright Publilius Cyrus wrote, "To do two things at once is to do neither." When you say yes to everything, you are effectively saying no to the things that truly matter. You are saying no to that book you wanted to write, no to the quiet evening you needed to recharge, no to the deep, focused work that could propel your true ambitions forward. Learning to say no is not an act of selfishness. It is an act of self-preservation. It is drawing a sacred circle around your time and energy, recognizing them as your most precious, non-renewable resources. A powerful no is a declaration that you have priorities. It is a sign that you are the one steering your ship, not being tossed about by the currents of others' requests. If the word no feels like a confrontation, if it lodges in your throat and fills you with guilt, it is a sign that you have given away your power, and the life you are leading is one of obligation, not intention. Here is the third, and perhaps one of the most telling signs. You feel a profound sense of relief, not joy, when your plans are canceled. The dinner party you were dreading gets called off, and a wave of pure, unadulterated relief washes over you. The weekend trip you felt obligated to attend is postponed, and you feel like you've been granted a pardon. This is a crucial distinction. Joy is the feeling of gaining something wonderful. Relief is the feeling of having a threat removed. If your social calendar, your commitments, and your obligations feel like threats to your peace, you are living a life that is fundamentally at odds with your own desires. You are filling your days with activities that drain you rather than fulfill you. Your schedule has become a tyrant, and a cancellation is a momentary escape from its rule. The great inventor and statesman Benjamin Franklin famously said, "Dost thou love life? Then do not squander time, for that is the stuff life is made of." When you secretly hope for your own plans to fall through, you are wishing away your own life piece by piece. You are hoping for empty spaces in your calendar, not so you can fill them with what you love, but simply to have a moment to breathe, to recover from the life you've built. This is a clear signal that your life is overstuffed with shoulds and starved of wants. A truly aligned life is one where your commitments energize you. A canceled plan in such a life would be a disappointment, not a reprieve. It would be a missed opportunity for connection, growth, or joy, not a lucky escape from a self-imposed prison. The fourth sign is that you consume far more than you create. Consider your daily habits. How much of your time is spent scrolling through social media feeds, binge-watching series, reading outrage-fueled news articles, or passively absorbing the content created by others? Now compare that to the time you spend creating something uniquely your own. This doesn't have to mean writing a novel or painting a masterpiece. Creating can be journaling your thoughts, trying a new recipe, having a deep and meaningful conversation, organizing a space in your home, learning a new skill, or mentoring someone. Consumption is passive. It is taking in. Creation is active. It is giving out. A life heavily skewed towards consumption is a life lived in the passenger seat. It is a life that reacts to the world rather than contributing to it. The Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private meditations, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." When you are constantly consuming, your thoughts are not your own. They are echoes of the content you absorb. Your mind becomes a cluttered attic of other people's opinions, anxieties, and curated realities. This leads to a feeling of stagnation, of being a spectator to life rather than a participant. Creation, on the other hand, is the engine of a meaningful life. It connects you to your own mind, your own skills, and your own unique perspective. It is the process of bringing order to chaos, of making a small mark on the world that is yours alone. If you find that your days are a blur of passive consumption, leaving you feeling empty and agitated, it is a sign that you are neglecting a fundamental human need, the need to express, to build, to contribute. You are living as a shadow, reflecting the light of others instead of generating your own. The fifth sign is a subtle but corrosive one. Your inner dialogue is overwhelmingly negative. Pay attention to the silent narrator in your mind. What is its tone? Is it a supportive coach or a harsh critic? When you make a mistake, does it say, "An opportunity to learn," or does it say, "You always mess things up"? When you consider a new challenge, does it say, "You have the strength to try," or does it say, "You'll only fail and embarrass yourself"? For many people living a misaligned life, this inner voice is a relentless tormentor. It is the voice of their deepest fears, their insecurities, and their unmet expectations, playing on a constant loop. This internal negativity is a sign that you are at war with yourself. You are living in a state of internal friction, where one part of you is constantly undermining the other. This is the opposite of the Stoic ideal of harmony. Seneca the Younger, a great Stoic thinker and advisor to Emperor Nero, wrote, "A person's fears are lighter when the danger is at hand." This means we often suffer more in imagination than in reality. A negative inner dialogue is the very engine of that imaginary suffering. It creates catastrophic scenarios, replays past failures, and predicts future disasters. keeping you trapped in a cycle of anxiety and self-doubt. A life lived in accordance with your nature should feel like a partnership with yourself, not a battle. Your inner world should be a source of strength and refuge, not a place of judgment and fear. If your mind feels more like a courtroom where you are perpetually on trial than a council of wise advisors, it is a powerful indication that the life you are leading is generating immense internal conflict and is not in service of your well-being. The sixth weirdly accurate sign is that you find yourself envying others more than you are inspired by them. You see a friend's travel photos, a colleague's promotion, or a stranger's success, and the immediate gut-level reaction is not happiness for them or inspiration for yourself, but a bitter pang of envy. You think, why them and not me? Or their life is so much better than mine. Envy is a symptom of a deep-seated dissatisfaction with your own path. It is a flashing red light indicating that you perceive a significant gap between the life you are living and the life you believe you desire. The Danish philosopher Søren Kierkegaard called envy unhappy admiration. It is admiration curdled by a sense of personal lack. When you are living an authentic and fulfilling life, the success of others acts as a source of inspiration. You see their achievements not as a judgment on your own failures, but as evidence of what is possible for humanity. You can celebrate their victories because you are secure in the knowledge that you are running your own race, on your own track, at your own pace. Envy, however, only thrives in a state of comparison, and constant comparison is the thief of joy. It pulls you out of your own life and forces you into a phantom competition you can never win, because you are always comparing your behind-the-scenes reality with someone else's curated highlight reel. If you find that your default response to the good fortune of others is a knot in your stomach rather than a spark in your heart, it is a sign that you are not at peace with your own journey. You are measuring your life against an external and ultimately irrelevant yardstick. This leads us to the seventh sign. You are always waiting for the next thing to be happy. You tell yourself you'll finally be happy once you get that promotion. Then, once you get the promotion, you'll be happy once you buy the house. Once you have the house, you'll be happy once you go on that perfect vacation. You live your life in a perpetual state of when then. When this happens, then I will be happy. Your happiness is always held hostage by a future event, a goal to be achieved, or a condition to be met. The present moment is not a place to be lived in, but a waiting room to be endured. This is what is often called destination addiction. It is the belief that joy resides in a future place, and the journey to get there is merely a necessary inconvenience. The Stoics had a powerful antidote to this, a radical focus on the present moment. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself constantly, confine yourself to the present. He understood that the future is a phantom and the past is a memory. The only reality we ever have is the here and now. To constantly defer your happiness to the future is to squander the only life you actually possess. It is a fundamental misunderstanding of where happiness comes from. Joy is not a destination, it is a way of traveling. It is found in the process, in the small moments, in the conscious appreciation of the present. If your life feels like a long, arduous commute to a perpetually receding horizon of happiness, it is a sign that you are living the wrong life. You are chasing a mirage, while the oasis of the present moment sits right before you, completely ignored. The eighth sign is that you cannot remember the last time you were truly lost in an activity. Think about it. When was the last time you were so absorbed in something that time itself seemed to disappear? When were you so focused, so engaged, that the nagging voice in your head went silent and you were in a state of pure, effortless action? This is the psychological state known as flow, and its absence is a quiet but profound signal of a misaligned life. Flow occurs at the intersection of high skill and high challenge. It is the space where you are stretched to your limits but are fully capable of meeting the demand. It can happen while playing an instrument, engaging in a sport, writing, coding, gardening, or having a deep conversation. It is the feeling of being in the zone. A life devoid of flow is often a life of boredom or anxiety. If your daily tasks are too easy and unchallenging, you live in a state of boredom. If they are too difficult and overwhelming, you live in a state of anxiety. The sweet spot, The place where growth and fulfillment happen is in that state of flow. The ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle spoke of eudaimonia, often translated as happiness or flourishing. For Aristotle, eudaimonia was not a feeling, but an activity. It was the act of living virtuously and realizing one's full potential. The experience of flow is a modern echo of that concept. It is the feeling of your potential being actualized in real time. If your days are a monotonous cycle of tasks that are either mind-numbingly boring or stressfully overwhelming, it is a sign that you are not engaged in the activities that align with your true capabilities and passions. You are not living, you are just getting by. The ninth sign is perhaps the most philosophically crucial. Your core values in your daily actions are in constant conflict. Perhaps you value health, but you consistently eat poorly and avoid exercise. Perhaps you value creativity, but you spend your evenings in passive consumption. Perhaps you value family, but your best time and energy are always given to your job, leaving only scraps for your loved ones. This gap between your stated beliefs and your actual behavior is a source of deep psychic pain. It is a state of cognitive dissonance that creates a persistent feeling of guilt, shame, and inauthenticity. You feel like a hypocrite in your own life. Seneca wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." This conflict between values and actions is one of the greatest wastes of a life. Every action that contradicts a core value is a small step away from your authentic self. Over time, these small steps lead you miles away from the person you want to be, into a life that feels fraudulent. The work of a well-lived life is the work of closing this gap. It is the daily practice of aligning your actions with your values. This requires, first, a clear understanding of what your values actually are, and second, the courage and discipline to act on them even when it is difficult. If you feel a constant nagging sense of being a fraud, if you would be embarrassed for someone to see the discrepancy between what you say you believe and how you actually live, it is an undeniable sign that your actions are building a life that your soul cannot recognize as its own. Finally, the 10th sign is a vague, persistent sense of anxiety or guilt that you can't quite name. It's not the sharp anxiety of an impending deadline or the clear guilt of having wronged someone. It's a low-grade atmospheric hum of unease. It's the feeling that something is off, even when everything is technically on. It's the Sunday evening dread that starts a little earlier each week. This nameless anxiety is often the soul's distress signal. It is the cumulative effect of all the other signs we've discussed. The outsourced validation, the weak boundaries, the joyless obligations, the passive consumption, the inner critic, the envy, the deferred happiness, the lack of flow, and the value-action gap. This feeling is your subconscious mind telling you that the life you are leading is not sustainable for your spirit. It is a quiet alarm bell warning you of a fundamental misalignment. The philosopher Jiddu Krishnamurti said, "It is no measure of health to be well-adjusted to a profoundly sick society. Similarly, it is no measure of success to be well-adjusted to a life that is profoundly wrong for you." This vague anxiety is a healthy response to an unhealthy situation. It is a call to attention. It is an invitation to stop, to look beneath the surface of your life, and to ask the hard questions. It is the final, undeniable whisper from your true self, asking to be heard. So what do we do with this knowledge? These 10 signs are not a judgment. They are not a verdict of failure. They are a compass. They are diagnostic tools for the soul. Seeing them in your own life is not a cause for despair, but a cause for hope, because awareness is the first and most critical step toward change. It is the moment you wake up at the wheel and realize you have been driving in the wrong direction. The journey back to the right path does not require a dramatic U-turn. It begins with a single, conscious correction. It begins with saying one honest no. It begins with spending 15 minutes creating instead of consuming. It begins with challenging one negative thought. It begins with celebrating one person's success. It begins with finding one small moment of joy in the present. The purpose of life is not to be happy. It is to be useful, to be honorable, to be compassionate, to have it make some difference that you have lived and lived well. Living the right life is not about finding a perfect, painless existence. It is about choosing the meaningful struggle over the comfortable numbness. It is about building a life that, when you look back, feels not like a performance for others, but like a true and honest expression of the person you were always meant to be.